Hello and welcome to Isurus vlog number 11. We are back, and today we're going to be talking about what makes a band progressive, and then after that we're going to talk about Opeth's Blackwater Park album, and then probably give some general band updates of what we've been up to. So that's the agenda for today. We're going to start with what makes a band progressive.
Well, the first one is what people tend to call progressive music. It's kind of turned into a genre, really, which in my opinion is sort of wrong in a way. I think progressive music's more of a way it's approached. But when people think of progressive music, they think of like stuff like ELP, early Genesis, Pink Floyd, you know, all that kind of stuff, and that stuff's also rooted in a kind of particular time, like in the 70s, and there was other sort of things going on and influencing how sort of music sounded and stuff. And
yeah, you're talking about it basically being a genre, like being a sound or in a way that metal is.
Yeah.
You know, a specific kind of sound within the music, and that's one way of looking at it. And we'll talk about what that is in a bit more depth, what the actual kind of prog genre is. But we really want to talk about what makes a band progressive from our perspective.
Yeah,
as well,
exactly.
right?
But that's what I wanted to kind of put across, was the fact that there's sort of two camps of the way people view progressive music. You know, one being the kind of ELP, insane, stupid, twiddly diddly, mental, insane, structured. You know, just kind of all out indulgent music. Which I suppose all progressive music is. We're quite indulgent as well, but it's I think progressive, especially from our point of view and from a lot of other bands, it's more a thing of pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries of and doing something new and different, and having structures that don't adhere to the kind of verse chorus middle eight, whatever, you know, coda kind of way of structuring things that evolve through the song, and you have a lot of different, you know, telling a story almost. You're going through a lot of different phases, and you know, just keeping it more interesting. And
but again, it's you know, that's kind of musically oriented what you're saying. And
well, yeah, I was concentrating on musical style.
Right, I see. No, absolutely, and I think that the thing is that, okay, so, you know, stylistically, what makes a band progressive? You got, you know, the old progressive kind of bands, and really prog kind of came out of psychedelic music.
Yeah. Well, I think prog, it's very similar to fusion and jazz fusion. It's basically the melding of styles. Like fusion was the melding essentially of rock and jazz. And progressive music is just that. It's kind of taking influence from lots of different genres and mixing them up and kind of creating something interesting, new, breathing more life into stuff without kind of rehashing the same old things that have been done before by countless times. So yeah, it's kind of, I think that's a big part of it. It's the way people have got opened up to more and more musical types from all over the world, and different styles evolve naturally over time, and it all keeps feeding back into it, and people that like to pick from lots of different stuff, you know, it kind of keeps coming out with new and interesting kind of ideas and creating new genres. Because compared to going back like 30 years ago, I mean, the amount of kind of categories we have now for music is just insane. I mean, no one would even be able to know them all, you know. There's like subgenres and subgenres of every single type of music.
As quickly as you can say them,
I mean,
and know
they
them.
just get invented, and, you know, they just get coined some kind of name, usually by the press or critics or whatever, and then something kind of sticks for a particular movement. And
So gent is kind of an example of that, a recent example of that. Doom is another one. But anyway, we're off topic. And so progressive music, as you know, we made a video about the psychedelic movement, and as we love to do, let's link to that video in another session. So that psychedelic movement really kind of came before progressive music, and progressive music kind of came out of that, didn't it? It was like,
yeah, I think that was the instigating force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really the two are kind of blended. there's certain bands that really are both. You could consider them both.
Totally. The Pink Floyd are a really good example of that.
Yeah. And you know, the Canterbury scene was very important in the whole development of progressive music, just because it was so important in psychedelic music.
That was
prog.
Kind of almost like a community of musicians, really, wasn't it? Lots of people that knew each other and worked with each other in different projects and stuff, and kind of cross-pollinating. That's kind of how it happens a lot of the time.
Yeah. So some of the bands you kind of associate, if someone says progressive music here, you got prog rock, and that's really one of the biggest areas of progressive music in terms of a genre. And you know, in prog rock you've got bands like Rush, early Genesis. You know, there's a whole massive load. You mentioned ELP; they're an important member of that clan, and you got King Crimson, and you know, there's a whole load. We won't just list them all. Yes,
they're another real close psychedelic crossover.
Yeah. A lot of them are.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Well, especially a lot of the early ones, sort of the late 60s, 70s kind of period.
So, you know, that's kind of like
Frank Zappa.
Frank Zappa. Yeah, who's a genius. Apostrophe, his album, Apostrophe by Frank Zappa, is one of the best albums. And that kind of genre, in my opinion, is brilliant. We have to actually talk about that at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
But not too much today, I guess. It's a brilliant album. I think we mentioned it before. But anyway,
maybe.
We certainly mentioned Zappa. So another way of looking at progressive, or what makes a band progressive, and this is really the way that we view it, although we as a band have elements of like prog rock and traditionally progressive music, for us being a progressive band is actually kind of a mindset, having a mindset of progression and pushing things.
Yeah, it's like an ethos of the way you do sort of everything, really, not just talking about the writing here. Like for us, because we do everything ourselves, you know, it's like we view that as being kind of modern and progressive. You're utilising all the modern tools that are available.
Yeah, responding to whatever's there, not just taking things for granted and doing things that have been done before. It's a mindset in terms of, you know, you always look at things in a way, from a progressive and innovative kind of point of view. And in a strange way, the prog genre and the development of that, if that then stayed the same, you know, that's not very progressive, although you could call it progressive.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's not many bands making what you'd term like prog rock anymore. It progresses because of its very nature.
Yeah, I mean, if you were kind of trying to go after the sound of like A Lamb Lies Down on Broadway or something, like an early Genesis album, then you'd be thinking you're writing the genre of progressive rock, but really you're being regressive, because you're going back. You're going back in time, and this is kind of the distinction I really wanted to point out between the view of it as a genre and the view of it as a kind of concept.
Mindset, And you know, by the nature of progressive music, it progressed into other things. You know, really kind of, I think that it, more than anywhere else, it kind of moved into metal. Moved it, and you know, that we'll talk about that a little bit later. But really, it moved into all different types of music.
Yeah, well, there's
indie rock.
There's a huge genre of electronic music, which is progressive house, which is basically house music that's got very elongated structures and lots of evolving, and not as much repetition as is most common with like EDM music. So there's progressive everything, progressive country music. There's, you know, it's kind of a, I think in terms of sort of writing, progressive a lot of the time boils down to a kind of openness in terms of structure and composition, more than a particular sound or idea, I suppose, you know. And concept albums, like we talked about before, you know, they're a big part of the sort of progressive thing, really, like having a real sort of motivating force behind the whole thing, an album or a song or whatever, you know, having a kind of defined idea and a direction and a purpose.
I think that actually you could probably kind of look at progressive music composition and kind of tie it back to like jazz and innovation. improvisation.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that the way that we write is definitely
we write very
improv.
we jam a lot, and that's where like a lot of our ideas come from, and songs just kind of naturally evolve over time. And I think that's definitely a part of it, because you're not, when you're writing in that way, you're not kind of specifically writing in a format or trying to write a song even. You're just kind of working on these little musical ideas, and they kind of evolve and carry on. You end up with something that's a little bit more in depth or
creative.
Yeah,
I think it's like less contrived.
Yeah.
It's like you're not standing back and going, okay, I want to write a song, I need a verse here, let's try and write a verse. Right, there we go, done. Now I need a chorus, and it's much more just the result of gradual kind of refining, of improvisation sessions. And I think that's probably, what most prog bands, or the way most prog bands write, and that's kind of a defining characteristic, I reckon.
Yeah, probably. And I think another thing as well is the fact that they're not built around vocals, because a lot of, especially kind of pop and rock music, the vocal is the most important pivotal thing, whereas in a lot of progressive music it's an equal part with the rest of it, or in some cases like ELP and stuff, it's non-existent or a tiny element. And the kind of musicality in the music is the driving force.
In a way, I would say Dream Theater are a really kind of like classically prog band, prog rock, but obviously they're metal as well. So that structurally and in everything they do, it's progressive stylistically, and I reckon that's how they write as well. And you can really see it, like when they did their auditions for a drummer, they were jamming with them, and it was a big part of it. And I think that just goes to show that a lot of progressive music, and that, in terms of what you term as progressive as a genre, or stylistically progressive, it really comes from that kind of improv composition.
Just freedom, just a sense of freedom, and that being a kind of prerequisite of the way you work, I suppose. Because bands that I consider to be progressive that don't really get put in the progressive category, like Radiohead are one of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Orbital.
And I reckon they write in the same way. Radiohead,
they definitely do. I know they do. They switch out instruments all the time and kind of try things in so many different ways, and let things just develop and kind of cook and stew. That's what you got to do. That's why it takes a long time to write this kind of stuff.
Yeah, true. You have to explore every possible kind of area of it. And so, and then, one of the main kind of movements in progressive music now is progressive metal, which is, if we had to put ourselves in the genre, which bands tend to have to.
When you're, if you're trying to put your music online somewhere, you have to kind of tag it and give it some kind of title. Yeah,
and say what it is. If someone's going to listen to it, oh, what is this? Well, it's kind of...
It's art.
It's music.
Music.
It's some music we made.
It's noise.
But, so we have to, obviously, in some way put ourselves in a category, and that's really the category I think that we fit in. And it's a big movement. There's a lot of progressive metal bands, a lot of really good progressive metal bands out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, one of the ways I try and explain our music to people that either haven't heard it, or like the way I kind of explain to my dad, for example, because my dad doesn't know much about metal at all, really. It's totally different generation from the kind of stuff he was into. And I said, well, the kind of best way of looking at it is like a band like Pink Floyd, their root was the blues, and then they went off on tangents from there.
It's a good example.
And for us, I've always viewed this as our root is metal, and then we deviate from there,
I suppose, in a way, I sort of feel like my route stylistically is, if I had to say it would really be the prog rock from the 70s. And then I tagged on the metal. It's like equal parts.
I don't know. When we first started out, we were pure thrash metal.
We were thrash metal. Yeah, we were a thrash metal
through and through.
Yeah, but even then we had a lot of elements of prog, but then a lot of thrash metal does. Just you can see that actually thrash metal is quite progressive.
Yeah, it's quite intricate. I mean, and Justice for All, that's like a seminal thrash album, Metallica, obviously.
We're always talking
that's a very progressive album. I always think in terms of the kind of song structures, and like One is a fantastic example of a prog song, really.
And Pantera.
I'd say Pantera are much more bluesy.
Yeah, they're bluesy, but they've got prog elements.
They're really fucking heavy blues.
Yeah, I'll let that go. I agree with that. Yeah, so
I actually listened to Reinventing the Steel.
Oh, it's a great album. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that album.
For some reason during the day, I just had this overwhelming urge to listen to Pantera. I think I got a bit annoyed at work.
Goddamn Electric is a brilliant song.
Yeah. It's a really good album.
So, yeah, I think you mentioned the business side of it, but I think ultimately the way that we kind of view progressive, although we view ourselves as a progressive band stylistically, that as we've said, we also think that it's really a mindset and approach to everything that you do. And in a way, I'm not really sure if you're born with that and then you kind of have to be just because that's the way that you're built, or I don't know, but for me it certainly feels natural to try to innovate in every area of and every area that we're involved in.
Yeah, well, mixing, I think it's everything. Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things. I think it's like part of it is wanting the control and to be in charge of a lot of different elements involved in it, not handing stuff off to other people like artists or a record label, or getting direction outside of the unit. And it's also a kind of entrepreneurial kind of business element to it as well, like handling all your own affairs and finances and your own release and stuff.
Yeah, for us it's a natural approach, isn't it? Given the current state of the industry, all things considered, that's the right thing to be doing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to end this little segment here just by saying that we're going to put in the description some links to some really cool progressive metal and just generally progressive blogs. So go and check them out. We're subscribed and we read a lot of stuff from those blogs, and I think that it's worthwhile doing that if you're interested in this kind of music. So let's end there and we'll come back and talk about Opeth's Blackwater Park,
which is a great progressive album.
Hello, we're back, ready to talk about Opeth's Blackwater Park album. First of all, before we go into that, wanted to say that we are not messing around today and we're drinking Rioja, red wine that we're big fans of. So, Opeth Blackwater Park. The album was released in 2001, actually March 2001, and it was their 5th studio album. And
we've
what
got
an album it is.
Several copies of it here.
Yeah.
We've got I bought this in 2001, just after it came out, before I lived in London. And my sister was studying at uni in London, and I used to go and visit her. And one thing I always did whenever I went to London was go to Tower Records, which used to be, and Piccadilly Circus, which is an absolutely colossal record shop. And I used to love that place. So whenever I came to London, that'd be like the first thing I did was go there. Because it was like any other kind of music shop, like they had, their metal section was as big as the main rock and pop section of your average kind of CD shop at the time. So I used to go there and be able to pick up, all this stuff that you just couldn't find in other stores. But anyway, so in 2001 I got this, and this when I first got into Opeth. And it's also when I first heard of Stephen Wilson, because the singer and guitarist of Porcupine Tree, and he's done a lot of his own solo stuff. He's also remixed King Crimson's reissues they've been doing over the last few years. He's mixed a lot of Opeth's albums, but anyway, he mixed and produced this, and had some kind of guest singing appearances of it. And this is the limited edition 2 CD version of it, which had an extra couple of tracks which they cut from the album, or just didn't think they fit on it, but included them in that. And then 10 years later they did the Legacy edition, which is the 10th anniversary, which is remastered, and it has a live track on it which is awful actually. It's a really bad performance, and it's got a 5.1 surround sound mix of the album, and kind of new artwork, which is cool. And finally the vinyl, which you've already seen, which is a deluxe heavyweight vinyl. But yeah, I like to buy, I'm a bit of a record collector, you might have noticed.
So if it's a good album, get every single possible incarnation.
Well, it's not that far, but no, this one's a bit of a freak. It's because they've kind of reissued it, so that's why I went and bought the kind of reissue of it. And it's just the reason I have the vinyl is I try to buy vinyl of my favourite albums, basically. Just because I can, and I love it.
Okay, let's talk about we'll cover the technical details before we go on and talk about what we actually think about the album. Yeah. So it was obviously produced by Steven Wilson, which is a very important element in the album. We'll go on to talk about that later. Also, Frederick Nordstorm was involved, and he did engineering on the album. He didn't produce it. He also was involved in mixing, so he did a lot of the mixing with Steven Wilson. And Opeth. Well, Opeth were present, but effectively in the credits you got production, Frederick Nordstorm, Steven Wilson and Opeth, and then mixing is Steven Wilson and Frederick Nordstorm. And then so Frederick Nordstorm has been involved with loads of different bands, mainly Swedish bands, and he's a producer, very important in that scene. I'm not going to go through loads of bands, but At the Gates, you know, a whole load of others. You can.
I don't think we've actually mentioned, but obviously Opeth are Swedish. They're from Stockholm.
We just take that for granted.
Yeah. So yeah, they're from Stockholm. So they're a big part of the Swedish initially death metal movement.
Yeah. And then it was mastered by a guy called Goran Finnberg, and interestingly, Goran Finnberg, he also mastered Kolos by Meshuggah, and Accelerated Evolution by Devin Townsend. So
That's
he's in that
album.
scene. He's in that kind of scene, and he has worked a lot. He did a lot with Arch Enemy and some early At the Gate stuff. So he's part of that kind of movement, and really a lot of these musicians and producers and mixers, they're all in that kind of Swedish black metal and death metal scene. And really, this is kind of Blackwater Park is kind of classed as black metal, although it's kind of like progressive black metal or just progressive metal, but maybe the genre hadn't been invented.
It's really weird. This album's kind of
it's also thrashy.
Yeah, well, thrash was kind of the starting point of death, because I mean Opeth have kind of death metal vocals basically, and as well as the kind of clean proper singing. But this was the first time they kind of embraced the sort of 70s element, because obviously Michael Ackerfeld, the singer, is a massive prog and fan of a lot of the kind of 70s bands, and this was their first album that kind of started really showing that. Well, I suppose Still Life, the album before this, kind of did a little. It started having those kind of folky elements to it. But to me, this album, I don't find this album heavy. I find it really,
it is in places.
It is heavy. It is heavy, but the tone of it is very dark. But it kind of feels very folky, and it almost seems timeless.
You mean like less? It's not so aggressive as it is epic.
But the I don't know. It's a kind of feeling it gives me. It feels really pastoral and folky, and kind of evokes images of the countryside and
the woods
and
dark forest at night.
It sounds kind of timeless. It sounds really, really old, which is, I don't know. It's a fantastic album.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, and I was shocked.
I brought it back. I came straight back from London and brought it to.
I remember,
where you were living at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have to hear this.
And that was it. I was just so hooked. and what an album it is. I mean, bloody hell.
I think it's their best album.
Stop. Totally. This is their peak. You know, this is where they really, it all came together, and I think a big part of that is Steven Wilson. And the band said, quote, he had an immense impact on the recording.
And he said, quote, I think we made the sum much better, no, the product much better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Like his involvement in it kind of helped them kind of shape it and move in a slightly, just away from metal, I suppose, because Steven Wilson is much more straight progressive kind of rock and sort of pop oriented. He often cites the Bee Gees as a major influence in his vocal writing for like writing hooks and things. So yeah, I think he kind of helped them kind of deviate from metal. They were doing it themselves, but he kind of pulled them even further.
I think he just condensed it. He just showed what was there, showed the elements, made all the elements work together really well. And the interesting thing,
I mean, he's a master of soundscaping and sound design.
And you can really hear that, like phasers in the background of the heavy guitars, and you know, the thing is that he actually, like when they went into the studio at the start, they went in August 2000, and they had not much material. They had like no lyrics. They went in.
Mike Blackwater was writing stuff,
and it was released
during the night.
5 months after that. So effectively, they went in and, you know, and then they kind of wrote the album. And you know, you can see that they were writing during the recording process, and you know, Frederick Nordstorm was involved, and Steven Wilson heavily involved. You can hear his influence so heavily,
especially in the vocals with the kind of harmonies and layered parts. I mean, that's something that's a cornerstone of Steven Wilson's kind of writing and production style.
Just the way, just the thickness of it, and that, you know, you can hear his creativity. He has this. I think he's actually probably the thing he does best is production. I think that he's really good at getting things
and songwriting.
Out of
He's an excellent songwriter.
Yes, yeah, arrangements.
As well. Arranger, and he's really good at doing like vocal harmonies, and something that's prevalent in his music is that his kind of vocal rounds when he has like layered or cyclic sequences and things.
Yeah, and dynamic build up.
I think he really, because Michael Ackerfeld has got a really beautiful, amazing voice when he sings, and I think much better than Steven Wilson's voice.
Of course.
So I think Steven Wilson kind of helps him to embrace his kind of his clean singing and move away from the growling.
But he's so good at the growling.
Yeah, he's awesome.
My God, it's the best growling that you'll ever hear. I mean, honestly, this.
Well, no, actually, I think the best growling that he's ever done is actually on the Ghost Reveries album. That's fucking insane.
Yeah, but I think the point is, though, I know what you mean, but in the context of the music, you know, the growling is just so. I mean, because the music is so good.
To me, it doesn't sound silly. To me, it sounds, because a lot of the time growling can just sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I love metal. I love all genres of metal, but like, say I was going to play it to someone that isn't a metalhead. Okay, there's this kind of psychological hurdle they have to take that I've already taken to listen to it, and it's almost a barrier to a lot of people. Like, if you play someone Meshuggah, the vocal just switches them off. But
switches me off a bit as well. I just don't think it's that good growling.
No,
it's not the growling. I just don't think. Anyway, side.
Which is a real shame, because like a band like Meshuggah are really forward thinking. Really, they're a great example of a progressive band from a mindset point of view.
Yeah, progressive metal, death metal, progressive, whatever.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with this. But yeah, Opeth. I think people that aren't metalheads can actually appreciate and get into it, especially this album, and well, especially even more so is Damnation, which was their after this album they released Damnation and Deliverance together.
Yeah, but this is such a better album than any of them, and really for me, it's because it goes between the light and heavy in one album, and it does it in a condensed way.
Well, it does it in a very natural way.
Yeah.
It's it just works so well, and there's some really catchy kind of hooks in it. Both
some
in
of
the
the
guitar
riffs
and in the vocals are just so good.
It's real high level riffage.
And there's all this. There's a lot of EBO for all you guitarists out there. The EBO, the electronic, electromagnetic field generating, string zinging motherfucker, which I love. There's a lot of that on this album, and it gives this kind of ethereal quality, which is good.
So an interesting thing about the drums, when I listen to it, it's very inaccurate, the kick drum. If you listen to the kick drum, it's really all over the place, but in context, it sounds brilliant. Yeah. And Martin Lopez, who is the drummer, he obviously has left the band now, and he's in a band called Soen now, and you know, this is him in his prime. This is him really kicking it, and quite literally.
And it was kind of after this album where he, because he left the band due to health reasons. He was physically and mentally not well, basically. He had
got some kind of anxiety.
Yeah, anxiety, panic attacks, which is not a very good thing if you're going to get up on stage in front of thousands of people. And he had real problems eating. He had kind of eating disorders when he wouldn't keep food down. So he had strength, weakness issues. So he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't too bad on this album. It was after this. It was during Deliverance Damnation. He started really. Yeah,
this is the peak of his career. Bloody hell, he's a brilliant drummer when he gets it right.
Really, what's so good about him is he's so creative.
His fills and the way, they're just so perfect. They're so in context of the song. It's like you really look forward to those fills, and they're high level musicianship fills. They're they're like sad but true snare drum, like iconic kind of fills, and they work so well. And the way that he uses the toms, and I won't go too much into it, basically,
he's very
brilliant.
He's very kind of almost melodic with the way he plays the drums, like very similar to sort of Danny Carey, I think, in that element. Like they use the drums not just percussively, rhythmically. They kind of have this sort of melodic element to them. And I think a lot of it's because he comes from a like a hand drum sort of discipline where you kind of use got a lot more kind of feel rather than just straight machine thing, which especially a lot of metal drummers can get into. Yeah,
like Nicholas the Bastard and Dimmu Borgir. When
he's very creative.
He is awesome. But I'm just saying he's a machine.
Yeah, I think a better example of a machine is someone like Hellhammer.
Right. Yeah.
He's a machine.
I suppose so. Yeah. And Martin Lopez, actually, I saw him in a gig that he did with Soen after he left Opeth. And it was early. After. Yeah, it was early Soen.
Yeah, it was literally just after they released their first album.
Yeah. And it was a small venue in the middle of nowhere, and he was really crap. His performance was really bad. He ruined the gig. It's like he couldn't play, put on loads of weight, and he was really struggling, and he was not on form at all, which was really sad to see for me, because I'm thinking, you're the guy who did Blackwater Park, what's happening? But whatever. We have this album now. It exists. Yeah. If you don't have it, go and get it. It's brilliant.
It's one of my all-time favourite albums. It definitely gets into my top 10. It's so important for me.
Yeah, me too. It's iconic. It is iconic, and
this for me, like contrary to like maybe Brown's opinion, for example, this is a more important album for me than Lateralis by Tool. This is much more important.
I can't go that far, but I think that it's on the same level. So there's two things I want to say. First is that we're going to say the dynamic range, which is related to the mastering and the loudness of the album, how much it's been compressed.
You can see a video about that.
And the dynamic range of Blackwater Park is 6 decibels, which is the same as our
new record,
our new album called Logocharia.
Which is pretty compressed, really, but it's to a point where it sounds good. It's
as far as you'd ever want to go.
as far as you'd want to go, yeah.
So that's that.
One problem I've always had with this album is the kick drum. The kick drum is not very well mixed. Stephen Wilson.
Well, he's not very good at mixing kick drums.
He's not. No, he's not. No, it's true.
That's a whole other topic,
in all of his personal work, like whether it's
where is the
Porcupine
kick
Tree,
drum?
yeah,
There is
kick
no
drums
kick drum.
just
Yeah, Porcupine Tree and everything. It's like, it's not a metal kick drum.
Right.
But the kick drum in general is quite inaccurate. That's what I would say about it. It's not metronomic. It's not hugely well played. But who cares? Because it feels good and it sounds good, and you know, well done. Basically,
one of my favourite
Respect.
tracks. Have you got a favourite track off this? Mine is Bleak, the second track.
Yeah.
Which is that was the first time I heard Stephen Wilson, because he sings, him and Michael Ackerfeld do a kind of alternate kind of thing in the chorus of it, and Stephen Wilson sings the sort of lead chorus line in a way of the first part of the song. And the first time I heard it, I didn't know who Stephen Wilson was or anything, and I thought that it can't be the same bloke, and I kind of obviously investigated it, and that's how I found.
And it wasn't the same bloke.
Porcupine Tree. No, it
Oh
wasn't.
right.
But yeah.
So for me, I would say Drapery Falls, but I would say Drapery Falls. It's got some cool stuff in there, but I would say I have to go with Harvest, and that's because of the
Harvest
guitar.
is very good. Yeah.
It's like, for me, it just really, that's what really gave the album such credibility and just made it so much more kind of brilliant, is the fact that it's got that dynamic range, and Harvest really, with that acoustic guitar, it's just fantastic. It's timeless music.
And the final track, Blackwater Park, is fantastic.
Yeah, it's all good, really.
It's all good, yeah. It's an excellent album. We've seen them live quite a few times, haven't we? Like,
There was something I wanted to say about it, but I've completely forgotten it. So, anyway, I think we're done for now. If I remember it, then I'll say it in the next segment of the video. So we're going to come back in a bit. We'll talk about general updates of our band and what's going on with us. See,
listen to this album.
Yeah, Blackwater Park. Check it out. We'll be back in about 2 seconds.
Alright, we're back with our mate Buddha. First of all, there's something that we're going to try and do in all our vlogs. You may have noticed, if you've seen a few of our vlogs, we have a topic and we have an album that we talk about. It's kind of a review, kind of just our opinions and what it means to us, but yeah,
We'll call it a review.
We'll call it a review, kind of. It's not really a review. I don't think you can really review music and say,
No, objectively, this is it.
no,
But I know what you mean.
totally,
It's a personal
music is a subjective thing. Yeah, it's more our opinions and our what albums mean to us, and just trying to show albums that we think are very good, and to people that may or may not have heard them. Just kind of why not spread the love? So we're going to kind of give our reviews or our ratings of albums.
Yes.
So Blackwater Park for me, it's one. I've already said it's one of my top 10
Out of
albums
10.
of all time. So I would have to give it a 10.
A 10 out of
I
10.
would give it a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
It's a banger. Yeah.
It is a banger, I agree. I'm on the fence. I'm going to give it...
It's up there with Dark Side of the Moon for me. It's
I think that's a valid...
transcendental.
Yeah, I think it's a valid... It's timeless. It's a valid point. And this is what I forgot to say in the last little segment that we had. So, my rating for the album is a 9.5. A 9 to 9.5. Let's say 9.25.
9.25.
9.25 out of 10. And the reason for that is because I think in some of the riffs they just stay on them too long. They just... Opeth have a tendency to do that.
They do, but I think...
Dirge for November is the song they really do that to me. For me,
For me, it's... that doesn't bother me, it's a mood thing.
Yeah, but I think it's just a little bit too much. A little bit. And I appreciate that, 95, 97% of the time they get it right. But that 3%, for me, it just stays on the same riff a little bit too much. Condense it a little bit more, and then you'll get a 10. but you got a 9.25. Well done. That is extremely good. The only other rating I've given is Metallica's Death Magnetic, which got a 1.
A 1. Yeah.
1 to 2. So, winning.
I'd give Death Magnetic. No, it wasn't it St Anger you gave a 1.
No, I gave Death
Magnetic on account of production.
Yeah, because I can't listen to it, so I can't really rate
It's basically a useless album.
Yeah.
It's pretty much pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna give you some band updates, I suppose. Obviously, over the last sort of month or so, everything's been geared towards our sort of online presence and getting stuff prepared for the release of the new album, which is going to be in about a week now. It's the 15th of May is the target. We will point out now, just give a little caveat to this, is that it's not 100% in our control. We're awaiting delivery of the CDs, and we also have to coincide that with timing our going live time on
digital
iTunes,
releases,
Amazon, and everywhere else like Spotify and Rhapsody and Deezer and all of them.
Well, we should hit it.
And we're not a massive record label with loads of money, and so it's going to be a bit erratic. But yeah, the aim is the 15th. And we'll have quite a few updates to the site and the shop area. So, because obviously if you buy it digitally, you'll be buying it through whatever digital retailer you use. Personally, I'd recommend Amazon over iTunes, but if you're an Apple fanboy,
What the hell? Amazon?
yeah.
Well, I mean, mate, I don't know. I mean, okay, right. I wouldn't recommend getting it from Amazon, but that's just my opinion. Just because they use a lower quality of MP3 when they sell at 256.
No, it's 320.
Is it 320 now?
Yeah, yeah.
They might have updated it.
Yeah,
We had an
320.
argument about this in the past.
320.
But
Definitely.
if you're
320.
wrong, I'm going to put an annotation up here saying you're wrong.
No, I'm pretty definite. It's 320. 320 kilobytes per second is the highest quality MP3 you can have. But if you want to hear the album at full resolution, well, not full, but the highest resolution it's released in. It was recorded in a higher one, but the way to do that is to buy the CD directly from us, which there'll be an area on the site within the shop where you can buy the CD, and we'll manually be packaging them up and sending them off to you.
Yeah.
So if there's any kind of hairs or dust or
There won't be.
there might be some
There won't be.
half chewed lumps of tuna. Then, I don't know.
No, I
There
will
might be
make
some
sure that.
brioche dribbles. But, it's the personal touch that counts.
Yeah. No, actually, the Digibook is a really high quality product.
Oh yeah, it's totally. It's
kind of like this.
Well, it is like that.
Yeah, this is a Digibook. So we've opted for high
So
quality. We're gonna get. We're also releasing
Hardback
them.
book basically with. This isn't the same sort of format. Ours has a solid CD tray at the back here, and then we've got a 16-page booklet in the middle. But yeah, these are like the generation on from the Digipacks, which were like card things, but these are really thick. It's like a hardback book basically, like a solid lump of card, and then this is different to ours. It's this is a kind of glossy thing. We've gone for a really thick matte like art paper, the kind of stuff you get prints on, so it looks very, very cool. I
can't wait to see it. It's going to be really good. So we're going to get 1,000 copies delivered.
Yeah,
very
we're going to
soon.
get a big box, a massive box of 1,000 of these things.
So you better buy them.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, when we get them, we'll stack them up on the table and we'll show you the whole delivery of them in the vlog. That'll happen pretty soon. We've just created a new mailing list, and for us this is a really big thing.
It's something that we kind of messed up. We should have done this a lot earlier. We had a kind of half-assed attempt at a mailing list before, and anyone that was on that mailing list, I've today sent a mail out to that mailing list, and there'll be I'll send another couple over time. asking you to transfer over to the new one if you want to. But the new one gives us a lot more options. It looks much better. It gives us the opportunity to kind of embed things and give special offers to people that are on the mailing list. Like in the future, we may do kind of bundle deals and stuff. And
yeah, we'll make it worthwhile for people to be on there.
Yeah, exactly. And we're basically going to use this mailing list much more proactively than we did with the last one. Not meaning that you're going to get loads of spam and stuff. Yeah. Like we're only going to give you information when there is actually something worthwhile. Like if we're playing live, if we've got any new videos, if we've got any new.
Yeah. Also, we can target our mail to people in the right locations for our gigs. So that's another thing. And there's loads of other things. You know, we can sort of send you things that you might be interested in, like we can do discounts and
exactly,
stuff
and
like that.
We can also do stuff like any promo relating to something that you've already bought, for example, you wouldn't get because you'd be put into a list, whereas you've already bought the album, for example, so if you're an
Isurus fan, that's where you want to be. You want to be on that mailing list. So definitely join up to that. We're going to put a link to it to where you can join up in the description, of course.
Or you can just go to our site and there's plenty of links all over it in various places.
Our site is looking.
And we've now changed it so that to download any of our stuff for free, you have to join the mailing list to then be given the link. Effectively, it's kind of changed. Before we just had it there out for anyone to get, which is the thing I think that
we got quite a lot of downloads.
We've got a lot of downloads and we didn't really get any
contact details
from it,
people,
which was a bit stupid, but you know, we live and we learn.
Yeah.
So going forward, it's we've got it in a much better kind of situation. Yeah. And at the moment, if you do it kind of now, before we release the album, you'll be able to download the Logocharia sampler, which is the first 3 tracks off the album, and also the whole album of Telos, the 2013 remaster. We're still debating it, but we're considering taking the Telos thing down completely, so it goes back to being something that you buy online. But we're kind of debating that. We were thinking of once we'd actually released Logocharia, we would remove the Telos download, so we may well do that. So if you want to go and grab it now for free, and you haven't got it already, go and do it, really. Because otherwise you'll have to go and buy it on iTunes.
Maybe. Depending.
But that'd be nice because we could do with some money because we're, you know,
putting all of our money into it.
We don't really make any money out of this. So.
Yeah. So charity. We were actually discussing registering as a charitable organisation.
Yeah. We're charitably donating our music to
metalheads. Yeah. Across the globe, who need stuff. Yeah. Need music
But that's the whole. We don't do this to make money. I mean, it'd be nice if it could be our source of income and our job. It'd be nice not to have a day job and be able to do this, but
yet we put so much work into it. We put a hell of a lot of work into this. It's like
we will do it anyway. So yeah, and if you're in the UK as well, there was a very good programme.
That's a way to make a point.
Very good programme. Yes.
Did you watch it?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
The BBC have done a really good. It's a series about sharks.
It's called. What's it called? Shark.
It's called Shark.
Shark. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really
We're massive shark fans.
Great. I mean, I'm a lover of videography and kind of all these kind of interesting video techniques, and they've done it so well.
Yeah, it's the best one I've ever seen.
Yeah, the best. I mean, and we've both been into sharks since we were very, very little kids, and seen every documentary basically that's ever been made about them. And the one that really got me was the one of the Greenland shark. You know, the one that has every one of them has this parasite that is the only place it lives. This parasite.
We're totally off topic.
Is on the eye of the Greenland shark. It literally eats.
That's all it.
That's the only place it exists.
That thing exists.
And it's basically this thin little thing that just it probably flies over the other side of the head. Doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a male on one side and a female.
But it basically eats away at the Greenland shark's eye until it goes blind. And this happens to every Greenland shark. They're born, they get this parasite, they slowly go blind, and then they live for about 200 years. just swimming about in the depths.
Amazing creatures, just amazing. And okay, so BBC Shark, that is
They've
highly recommended.
The first one just aired, and it's on iPlayer as well.
Yeah, it's really cool. BBC iPlayer. So,
and we just had an election in the UK, a general election, and it was, from my point of view, a complete and utter disaster.
Well, so be it. From my point of view, I don't really care. I think they're all idiots. I watched a couple of the debates and I thought, is that the best we can do? It's pathetic.
Well,
so, yeah, let's finish off with some band stuff. So, we actually got some concepts provided to us by Brown in Rome, who's already working on the concepts for the next album. Hard at work, you know, because he's there, he's not doing vlogs, he's got time to actually think about concepts. And he sent us some cool stuff, so we're checking that out. We're already in the mindset of thinking about the next album even before this one's been released. That's the way we roll.
Well, it's the way I've always worked. Like, I started writing, like, some of the stuff that's on Logocharia was written before Telos was released. Like, there were riffs floating around and little ideas.
It's a constant
like
thing.
The track that's now turned into Orbis, for example, was the first thing that I wrote off this album, and that's one of the one that's on the free 3-track download. I can't remember what it was called. What was it called?
I don't
we always have loads of stupid names for our tracks while they're working, but
and then Brown comes in and sorts them out.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but anyway. So yeah, that was written literally during the recording of Telos.
Yeah, and you've written some stuff for the new album.
Yeah, there's about 5 tracks that I'm currently working on, which I don't know if they'll make it on. There are a few,
maybe some little bits.
There's some very cool stuff. Well, I played Tom all 5 of these projects just after we did the last vlog, actually. For the first time, and there's some cool things, I think. Yeah,
very early stages. We have these stages.
Yeah.
Basically, we are. I think the important thing is we're already thinking about it and working on it. I have a whole kind of thing that I'm thinking about for the drum kit. Every album I intend to create a whole new drum kit to play on. So I've already fully researched that. We have a whole new rig design that we're going to do and gradually pour money into to achieve so that we self mix and produce the next album. But way before that, go check out the free sampler, 3 free tracks for Logocharia. Join the mailing list.
We promise not to spam you. We'll just give you good, useful information about what we're up to. So if you're interested in what we're up to, that's the best way to. You'll get stuff first, basically, if you're on there. And also check out our forum. I don't think we've mentioned that too often.
Yeah, we've got a forum.
We do have a forum, and there's a lot of stuff on there.
And we'll link to that in the description as well.
Especially if you're a musician and you're a kind of, or if you're a sort of techie, music tech kind of guy, it's or gal, it's a good place to go because we always post about more kind of geeky stuff. The stuff we don't really want to give out to people who are just fans of our music. It's more kind of
people who aren't geeks.
Yeah, it's more kind of musician orientated.
Yeah.
But yeah, go over there and
also comment on the video. Really love to hear what you think about what we're doing. Just in general, we really want to be engaged with our fans, and that's kind of a lot of what we do. We like to actually have direct contact with our fans and give them stuff to get involved. A lot of this is kind of feeding from the fans. Obviously, everything we do is, so really appreciate any comments that you want to make. Obviously subscribe to the channel if you aren't, and I think that's it for today. So we will say goodbye, and we'll be back in about a week with vlog number 12.
Adios.